Welcome to another episode of From the Tackle Box, an exclusive presentation from Knife Chats with Tobias. Welcome to another edition of From the Tackle Box. Now the main star of this video is going to be this little item here, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, I want to start off by talking about one of my books I have on fishing, which is called First Fish by C.B.Colby. I'm not sure how popular C.B.Colby books are today, but growing up in the 60s as a boy, and if you went to a library in your elementary school or even in the public library, these were the books you went for, the C.B.Colby books. And this is one of the greatest ones they had, which was First Fish. If you were into fishing, this is the book you wanted to grab. You would end up renewing it until the librarian said you had to return it because some other boy wanted that book. And yeah, maybe I'm being sexist, but this was the book that elementary school boys always wanted to get out, the C.B.Colby books. He wrote all sorts of things about what it was to be a boy, and First Fish was just a great book. He did the illustrating and everything, and you can see that illustration is really great. And it's just a fantastic book even today, and that's why it's in my collection of fishing books. I also got a bunch of books on knives and stuff that I should also share with you guys. You can see here 1953, that's the copyright for this book. It's the first printing of it, and it's just a fabulous book. I can't say that enough. And you can see here all the different things you can do with the book, and the artwork in it is wonderful. Look at that crappie. Look at that sunfish. I mean, it's great artwork. It was just something that, where to fish, various types of knots to tie, lines and leaders, and you'll see here even how to bait your different bait. Could you imagine telling the kid today how to hook a frog so that they can cast it out there? This is a live frog he's talking about. You don't see that kind of stuff today, but that's the way the bait was back then. How to cast and everything else. And you can see here the interesting thing, bait rods and reels, the bait rod. I think he also had the thing on the fly fishing rod. How to cast, night and still fishing, you name it, he did. Even how to mount your trophy and how to make different things. This is the thing that I always thought was cool about it, though, is pinch hit tackle that he talks about. This information is even good for somebody who's a survivalist. How you're going to catch fish if you don't have an actual fishing rod, and other things you can use for it. So really cool information for the survivalist out there. And then the fishing safety rules and rules for a sportsman. So just a fantastic book. If you can get a copy of it, I would suggest getting it. It's also just a fun read, and it's great for the young kids out there too. Somebody who's actually interested in fishing and hasn't gone fishing. This is the kind of book that would really might get those younger kids interested in fishing when they see what can happen with it. I'll throw in a couple slides of some of the more interesting pages inside the book at the end of this video. I just wanted to talk a little bit about this book before we move on to the star of the show, which is this little device right here. Okay, let's get this book out of the way and look at what I just caught. It's an albino catfish. I've been trying to catch one of these forever. I think I'm going to keep him. Yeah, he's dead now. Good. I didn't want him to suffer. That's why I brought my fish priest with me, because I needed to administer last rites to my albino catfish. Tenderize him a little bit too. And so that's what we're going to be talking about, my fish priest. For those who don't know what a fish priest is, it's a little metal bat that is designed specifically to crack the skull on a fish to put it out of its misery. It's when you catch a fish that you're going to keep, if you're going to let it go, you obviously don't need to whack it with a fish priest. Now, these little bats got the name of priest long before they were used for fishing even. I think at one time they were also known as a poacher's priest, and it basically, all it is a little metal bat or a wooden club or something that you would carry with you to basically stun or kill an animal, really, to kill an animal, to put it out of its misery. And the fish priest is usually about this size. It's not a really big item. As you can tell here, this one is about 6 inches long if you do not include the little lanyard hole on the back. If you include the lanyard hole, then it's about 6.5 inches long. And what you do is you actually grab it at the end, and if you notice these indentions here, that is so you can apply a little more oomph to the to an impact point. So when you hit it with that, it's more likely to crack the skull and kill the animal. You see it here in the indentions in the clay here. Notice how the indentions are showing up. That is where this part of the fish priest is hitting. See, nice and dent. And it's better for cracking the skull and such. Now, the really cool thing about this one is what's inside, because if you unscrew it in the middle, it opens up. You got this brass collar and then a little knife blade, and the knife blade is right at 2¼ inches long, and it is sharp the entire edge. This one is not extremely sharp, but it can be sharpened a little bit more. It was even duller when I first got it, because whoever had it definitely used it before. But that can also be used to puncture into the skull to also kill the fish, and it can also be used if you need to, for smaller fish, to cut its head off, or also you can use it for cutting bait or for cutting line. So maybe you got a fish that swallowed its hook or swallowed your hook, you could actually cut the line to let the fish go rather than kill it. And believe it or not, someone actually did a PhD study specifically on that. Is a fish going to survive if it swallowed your hook? And his actual study showed that a fish can usually get that hook out of himself in about 1 to 2 days, depending on where that hook is in the fish. And that includes if it is swallowed beyond its mouth, beyond its gills and everything else. The fish can use its external muscles to loosen that hook and spit it out. And he actually discovered that the place where a fish is least likely to get the hook off of him is when it's just hooked onto the lip. The guy hooked numerous fish in a tank and then monitored them to find out all that information. So there's no problem with actually cutting line and letting the fish out. I'll try and find the study, and then I'll link to it again too. But for right now, I just wanted to show this one. This is a really cool knife in my From the Tackle box. A little fish priest. I guess the more politically correct term these days is a fish bonker or a fish knocker. But originally, they were known as a fish priest. And this one is really cool. Probably dates from either somewhere between the 1930s and the 1950s. And if it's from the 30s, most likely it's stainless steel. If it's from the 50s, then it's probably aluminum. And unfortunately, I know very little information about who made this or anything else. I don't even know if it was made in the United States, but I believe they were made in the USA. And what's really cool, like I said, you've got a little brass collar there with a little knife blade. And there's my poor dead albino catfish, but he was legal. I mean, he was over, oh, wait. I thought he was 20 inches. Oh man, he was only 10 inches long. It wasn't quite a legal kill. Sorry about that, albino catfish. I read the wrong side of the ruler. Okay, here's that slideshow I was talking about on the book by C.B. Colby called First Fish. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to scroll through this, stopping about 2 seconds on each slide. If you want to know more about it, just pause and read whatever's on the screen. This way it'll go a little quicker. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Knife Chats, and if you did, please like and share it with your friends. Comments are always welcome. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you'll know when the next episode of Knife Chats is up online. Thanks again. Hope to see you soon.